All right, welcome back, guys. We're going to continue with our material regarding our senses. So let's see where we left off. We should be talking today about our sense of hearing. Remember that hearing has another name. Hearing is also known as audition. So that is the scientific name for hearing. Now, in regards to audition, it is going to be more directly linked to, of course, how we hear. Sorry about that. Just had to blow my nose. So directly linked to how we hear. We know that the ears are the major organs for hearing. We know that much. They also play a major role in balance and equilibrium. So that is something that doesn't normally get as much attention. But balance and equilibrium obviously is necessary just for standing and walking. They allow us to communicate with each other by receiving sounds and interpreting speech. On top of that, able to detect several differences like location, loudness, and pitch. All very important information. Hearing is controlled by mechanoreceptors receptors found in the tympanic membrane, which vibrate upon receiving different sound waves. So this tympanic membrane, right, and this mechanical process, something that we need to be aware of. These mechanoreceptors found on the eardrum are going to vibrate whenever sound enters the ear canal. So it's a very intricate process, and of course, we need to be comfortable with that. So let's take a look. Here we see the ear in all its glory. Almost every structure here we need to be comfortable with for the test. So I'm just going to go ahead and circle some of the structures to be aware of for diagram purposes. So we have here the pinna. The pinna is also known as your earlobe. It's on the outside. Granted, there's other structures of the earlobe that you may learn in the future, so don't have to worry too much about that. We have the ear canal, which of course is going to be the part that goes inward towards your skull. It's where sound travels into. Don't need to worry too much about cartilage. It's just what makes up your ear. Just like how the mastoid process is the bone that connects the ear to it. Don't have to worry too much about that. The middle ear has a couple structures we need to know, such as the eardrum, also known as the tympanic membrane. That is a name you'll see again. And then we have the three smallest bones of the human body. Technically 6, because you have 3 of these on the other ear as well, right? But you have the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. So we do need to know those 3. Then in the middle ear, we have another structure, the eustachian tube. And then finally, a couple structures here in the inner ear that we need to know. We have this cochlear organ known as the cochlea. And then these loops right here, those are called the vestibular organs, the vestibules, or also known as the semicircular canals. So these are the structures we need to be aware of. There's also this auditory nerve that would be like right around here. Obviously, it's not being labeled, but it's just the nerves fusing together. You can kind of see that happening a little bit. But when the vestibular nerve and the cochlear nerve combine, they form the auditory nerve or the vestibulocochlear nerve. So some structures of the ear. On the outside, we have some structures we need to be aware of. So for example, the earlobe is also known as the pinna. So make sure we know that. It collects sound waves. That's the entire premise. That's why our ears are shaped this way. It's like a cone. The ear canal is going to be where the actual sound waves travel through, right? Straightforward enough. Next, the eardrum. So the eardrum is also known as the tympanic membrane. We do need to know that name. It is a very thin membrane that vibrates whenever sound enters your ear. So we got to be comfortable with that. The ossicles. That's the name. I actually haven't said that name yet, but that's the name of these 3 bones together. So let's go through these one by one, right? So let's go ahead and just use, I guess, red in this circumstance. In red, we have the malleus, which is also known as the hammer. It's called that because it literally looks like a small hammer. Simple as that. In blue, we're going to circle here the incus. What is the incus also known as? The anvil. It looks like a little anvil that's being stricken on. And then we'll use this green color to identify the last one, the stapes. And what is the stapes known as? Your stirrup. The stirrup is like if you're not familiar with like horseback riding, it's the things that you put your feet in so that your legs aren't swaying all over the place while you're riding a horse. So you have the malleus, the incus, the stapes, or the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. You will see it either way, so just be prepared for that. Okay. Next, we're going into the inner ear. In regards to the inner ear, we have some structures we need to be aware of. The cochlea, it is that snail-shaped structure. The biggest thing to recognize is that it's filled with liquid and hair-like cells. That liquid is what actually is going to send the vibration. So if we had to visualize how does sound work, sound travels throughout the air. It's going to be attracted to your earlobe because of the sound, or the shape of the earlobe, and then it's going to travel into the ear canal all the way to the eardrum. The drum is going to vibrate, and those vibrations are going to travel through the bones into the cochlea. It's going to cause the fluid of the cochlea to vibrate, and then it's going to trigger the hairs in the cochlea, which are very, very tiny microscopic hairs. Those hairs can then translate that physical vibration into an electrical stimuli that travels via the nerve, and then eventually reaches your brain and you hear something. Pretty interesting. You got to be careful with those hairs, though, because they're very sensitive. If they're damaged, they're gone. You will not regrow those hairs. Semicircular canals is what we see here in the loops. By the way, they have another name, so just be prepared to know that. Semicircular canals are also known as the vestibules. So they're also known as the vestibules. So just be prepared for that. Okay. These are the canals, or these are the structures of the ear that are necessary for balance and equilibrium. They also have a fluid inside of them, but that fluid has to be calm. So that's a major, major thing as far as making sure that you're in balance. And the last thing is, of course, the auditory nerve. You don't really see it here, but that vestibular nerve and the cochlear nerve fuse and they form what's called the auditory nerve. Second to last thing to discuss, in regards to the ear, we know that the eustachian tube, which is a tiny little tube you can see here in both an adult and in infants, it connects the middle ear to your throat. Even if you were opening your mouth and looking in a mirror or looking at a front-facing camera, you're never going to see the eustachian tube. It's super, super, super tiny, right? Now, in regards to that, the purpose of this structure is very impactful. It's going to release pressure that builds up in the middle ear. And it can be a lot of pressure. So you're trying to release all that pressure. It's going to exit through your throat and thus equalize everything in the middle ear. How can you feel that? Well, if you're on a plane and you're ascending or descending, you'll feel your ears start to pop. And oftentimes a good way to deal with that is chewing gum. The chewing process helps with that. You can also open your mouth wide and you might feel your ears pop, or just plug your nose and breathe in. If you plug your nose and breathe in, you'll equalize the pressure. All right. And last but not least, just be aware that because there's a connection between these two regions, between the pharynx and the middle ear, if you got a strep throat, which is a very common bacterial infection, if it's not treated fast enough, it could spread through this shortcut and infect the ear, causing an ear infection. Last thing to mention real quick, as far as a common thing that people love to do, as far as for relaxing and different purposes, is this concept called ASMR, the autonomous sensory meridian response. It's almost like a tingly sensation running down your skin or running down your back. People love to do this because it can be very relaxing. Not this video specifically. This video you should look up, and it's really interesting. You can just look up on YouTube, Virtual Barbershop. It gives you a really great experience of what ASMR can be like. But like I said, most of the ones that people listen to are supposed to be more relaxing and calming. All right. So I think that's where we're going to conclude for today. I appreciate you guys checking in. And with that said, I will see you on the next one.